Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session of George Orwell's Animal Farm reading. So, to date, we have done 7 chapters. We have completed them successfully. Today, we are going to start with the reading of chapter 8. As you already know, there has been quite a bit of uh, development of this story where the pigs took over the manor farm and then they drew away. They successfully defended it against the human attacks. And then now Napoleon is firmly in the seat of the sole dictator of the farm. And in the last episode, episode number 7, there was significant punishment given to all the animals because they didn't follow the rules or the 7 rules or the commandments of the animals, basically. And there was instant justice that was given, justice or terror, depending on how you want to interpret it. So now, after that very sad, a lot of the participants and the panelists and in the discussion, everybody said it was a very sad episode. And now we are starting chapter 8, basically. So if you have any questions, please post in the comments if you are watching. You can also put it in the comments after the stream, and then I'll look at it and then I'll respond. So without much further delay, I'm going to start reading of chapter 8. And today we are joined by a special panelist as well. So as usual, lawyer sir is here. So he's Mr. Vamsi with the screen name Uyala Jampala. He has also joined. Sir, welcome to the panel, both of you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So with that said, let's go to chapter 8. And again, please panelists as well, if you have any questions, please stop me. Then we can have a discussion. A few days later, when the terror caused by the executions had died down, some of the animals remembered, or thought they remembered, that the sixth commandment decreed, "No animal shall kill any other animal." And though no one cared to mention it in the hearing of the pigs or the dogs, it was felt that the killings which had taken place did not square with this. Square with this means did not agree with this, were not in line with this commandment. Clover asked Benjamin to read her the sixth commandment. Clover is the other horse, the female horse, I guess, and Benjamin is the donkey. Clover asked Benjamin to read her the sixth commandment, and when Benjamin, as usual, said that he refused to meddle in such matters, she fetched Muriel. Muriel was the show horse, basically, that used to really like dressing up and things like that. Muriel read the commandment for her. It ran, "No animal shall kill any other animal without cause in uppercase letters." Somehow or the other, the last 2 words had slipped out of the animal's memory. But they saw now that the commandment had not been violated, for clearly there was good reason for killing the traitors who had leagued themselves with Snowball. So, no animal shall kill other animal only if there was no valid cause. But here, being a traitor is valid enough cause to be killed. So the animals somehow felt that this law was not violated, or the commandment was not violated. Throughout the year, the animals worked even harder than they had ever worked in the previous year. To rebuild the windmill with walls twice as thick as before and to finish it by the appointed date, together with the regular work of the farm, was a tremendous labor. There were times when it seemed to the animals that they worked longer hours and fed no better than they had done in Jones's day. So some animals started feeling that the work was harder, but the food was no better than what Jones had given them. So it was a bad deal. On Sunday mornings, Squealer, holding down a long strip of paper with his trotter, would read to them the lists of figures proving that the production of every class of foodstuff had increased by 200%, 300%, or 500%, as the case might be. The animals saw no reason to disbelieve him, especially as they could no longer remember very clearly what the conditions had been like before the rebellion. All the same, there were days when they felt they would sooner have had less figures and more food. So there was always hope because the production or the productivity was so high. The animals felt someday uh, they'll be able to get more food for less work because all the productivity numbers are up. All orders were now issued through Squealer. Squealer is the propaganda pig, basically, or one of the other pigs. Napoleon himself was not seen in public as often as once in a fortnight. When he did appear, he was attended not only by his retinue of dogs, retinue means the parivaram, the entourage of dogs, but by a black cockerel who marched in front of him and acted as a kind of a trumpeter, letting out a loud cock-a-doodle doo before Napoleon spoke. So there's a lot of fanfare when Napoleon showed up. Even in the farmhouse, it was said Napoleon inhabited separate apartments from the others. He took his meals alone with two dogs to wait upon him, and always ate from the Crown Derby dinner service, which had been in the glass cupboard in the drawing room. Okay, so he had a special silverware and things like that to eat. It was also announced that the gun would be fired every year on Napoleon's birthday, as well as on the other two anniversaries. The other two anniversaries were anniversary of the rebellion and anniversary of the Great War, basically. Now there is a third one, Napoleon's birthday. So it was becoming more about him than anything else on the farm. Okay. Napoleon was now never spoken of simply as Napoleon. He was always referred to in formal style as our leader, Comrade Napoleon. And this pigs like to invent for him such titles as father of all animals, terror of mankind, protector of the sheepfold, duckling's friend, and the like. In his speeches, sir, Sikshardin has also come. Hello, Sikshardin Garu.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi,
everybody.
Shiksha.
Hi, sir. Hi, Vamsi garu. Hi, Vishwa garu.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Namaskaram.
So I am reading 73 page, sir. I'll continue and I'll hand it over to you at some point. Okay.
Okay, sir. Sure.
Yeah. In his speeches, Squealer would Duckling's friend and the like. So Napoleon had now started to acquire many titles in addition to just being called leader, comrade, etc. Right. So in his speeches, Squealer would talk with the tears rolling down his cheeks of Napoleon's wisdom, the goodness of his heart, and the deep love he bore to all animals everywhere, even and especially the unhappy animals who still lived in ignorance and slavery on other farms. Oh, so he was being very empathic or empathetic towards the entire animal kind, basically. Right? It had become usual to give Napoleon the credit for every successful achievement and every stroke of good fortune. You would often hear one hen remark to another, under the guidance of our leader, Comrade Napoleon, I have laid 5 eggs in 6 days. Or two cows enjoying a drink at the pool would exclaim, thanks to the leadership of Comrade Napoleon, how excellent this water tastes. The general feeling on the farm was well expressed in a poem entitled Comrade Napoleon, which was composed by Minimus and which ran as follows. Right? So, what was the poem? Friend of fatherless, fountain of happiness, Lord of the swill bucket, oh how my soul is on. Oh, how my soul is on fire when I gaze at thy calm and commanding eye. Like the sun in the sky, comrade Napoleon, thou art the giver of all that thy creatures love. Full belly twice a day, clean straw to roll upon. Every beast, great or small, sleeps at peace in his stall. Thou watchest over all, comrade Napoleon. Had I a sucking pig, Erie had grown as big. Even as a pint bottle or as a rolling pin, he should have learned to be faithful and true to thee. Yes, his first squeak should be Comrade Napoleon. So Napoleon approved of this poem and caused it to be inscribed on the wall of the big barn at the opposite end from the Seven Commandments. It was surrounded by a portrait of Napoleon in profile, executed by Squealer in white paint. Okay. Meanwhile, through the agency of Whymper, Napoleon was engaged in complicated negotiations with Frederick and Pilkington, so the outside farms. So, Sikshara, I'll do 75 page 75, and then I'll give it to you. The pile of timber was
All
still
right, sir.
yeah. The pile of timber was still unsold. Of the two, Frederick was the more anxious to get hold of it, but he would not offer a reasonable price. At the same time, there were renewed rumors that Frederick and his men were plotting to attack Animal Farm and to destroy the windmill, the building of which had aroused furious jealousy in him. Snowball was known to be still skulking on Pinchfield Farm. In the middle of the summer, the animals were were alarmed to hear that three hens had come forward and confessed that, inspired by Snowball, they had entered into a plot to murder Napoleon. They were executed immediately, and fresh precautions for Napoleon's safety were taken. Four dogs guarded his bed at night, one at each corner, and a young pig named Pink Eye was given the task of tasting all his food before he ate it, lest it should be poisoned. At about the same time it was given out that Napoleon had arranged to sell the pile of timber to Mr. Pilkington. He was also going to enter into a regular agreement for the exchange of certain products between Animal Farm and Foxwood. The relations between Napoleon and Pilkington, though they were only conducted through whimper, were now almost friendly. The animals distrusted Pilkington as a human being, but greatly preferred him to Frederick, whom they both feared and hated. As the summer wore on and the windmill neared completion, the rumors of an impending treacherous attack grew stronger and stronger. Frederick, it was said, intended to bring against them 20 men, all armed with guns, and he had already bribed the magistrates and police so that if he could once get hold of the title deeds of Animal Farm, they would ask no questions. Moreover, terrible stories were leaking from Pinchfield about the cruelties that Frederick practiced upon his animals. He had flogged an old horse to death, he starved his cows, he had killed a dog by throwing it into the furnace. He amused himself in the evenings by making cocks fight with splinters of razor blade tied to their spurs. The animals' blood boiled with rage when they heard of these things being done to their comrades, and sometimes they clamored to be allowed to go out in a body and attack Pinchfield Farm, drive out the humans, and set the animals free. But Squealer counseled them to avoid such rash actions and trust in Comrade Napoleon's strategy. So there it is, Sikshagaru, in case you are
Right,
ready
sir.
to take over. Yeah.
Yes. So, nevertheless, feeling against Frederick continued to run high. One Sunday morning, Napoleon appeared in the barn and explained that he had never at any time contemplated selling the pile of timber to Frederick. He considered it beneath his dignity, he said, to have dealings with scoundrels of that description. The pigeons who were still sent out to spread tidings of the rebellion were forbidden to set foot anywhere on Foxwood and were also ordered to drop their former slogan of death to humanity in favor of death to Frederick. In the late summer, yet another of Snowball's machinations was laid bare. Excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
In the
If you
late,
want to take care of
so,
something, I can.
no, sir.
Okay.
Just a small technical problem. In the late summer, yet another of Snowball's machinations was laid bare. The wheat crop was full of weeds, and it was discovered that on one of his nocturnal visits, Snowball had mixed weed seeds with the seed corn. A gander who had been privy to the plot had confessed his guilt to Squealer and immediately committed suicide by swallowing deadly nightshade berries. The animals now also learned that Snowball had never, as many of them had believed hitherto, received the order of Animal Hero First Class. This was merely a legend which had been spread some time after the Battle of the Cowshed by Snowball himself. So far from being decorated, he had been censured for showing cowardice in the battle. Once again, some of the animals heard this with a certain bewilderment, but Squealer was soon able to convince them that their memories had been at fault. In the autumn, by a tremendous, exhausting effort, for the harvest had to be gathered at almost the same time, the windmill was finished. The machinery had still to be installed, and Whymper was negotiating the purchase of it, but the structure was completed. In the teeth of every difficulty, in spite of inexperience, of primitive implements, of bad luck, and of Snowball's treachery, the work had been finished punctually to the very day. Tired out, but proud. Oh my God. Tired out, but proud, the animals walked round and round their masterpiece, which appeared even more beautiful in their eyes than when it had been built the first time. Moreover, the walls were twice as thick as before. Nothing short of explosives would lay them low this time. And when they thought of how they had labored, what discouragements they had overcome, and the enormous difference that would be made in their lives when the sails were turning and the dynamos running, when the thought of all this, their tiredness forsook them, and they gamboled round and round the windmill, uttering cries of triumph. Napoleon himself, attended by his dogs and his cockerel, came down to inspect the completed work. He personally congratulated the animals on their achievement and announced that the mill would be named Napoleon Mill. 2 days later, the animals were called together for a special meeting in the barn. They were struck dumb with surprise when Napoleon announced that he had sold the pile of timber to Frederick. Tomorrow Frederick's wagons would arrive and begin carting it away. Throughout the whole period of his seeming friendship with Pilkington, Napoleon had really been in secret agreement with Frederick. All relations with Foxwood had been broken off. Insulting messages had been sent to Pilkington. The pigeons had been told to avoid Pinchfield Farm and to alter their slogan from death to Frederick to death to Pilkington. At the same time, Napoleon assured the animals that the stories of an impending attack on Animal Farm were completely untrue, that the tales about Frederick's cruelty to his own animals had been greatly exaggerated. All these rumors had probably originated with Snowball and his agents. It now appeared that Snowball was not, after all, hiding on Pinchfield Farm and in fact had never been there in his life. He was living in considerable luxury, so it was said, at Foxwood, and had in reality been a pensioner of Pilkington for years past. The pigs were in ecstasies over Napoleon's cunning. By seeming to be friendly with Pilkington, he had forced Frederick to raise his price by 12 pounds. But the superior quality of Napoleon's mind, said Squealer, was shown in the fact that he trusted nobody, not even Frederick. Frederick had wanted to pay for the timber with something called a check, which, it seemed, was a piece of paper with a promise to pay written upon it. But Napoleon was too clever for him. He had demanded payment in real 5-pound notes, which were to be handed over before the timber was removed. Already Frederick had paid up, and the sum he had paid was just enough to buy the machinery for the windmill. Meanwhile, the timber was being carted away at high speed. When it was all gone, another special meeting was held in the barn for the animals to inspect Frederick's banknotes. Smiling beatifically and wearing both his decorations, Napoleon reposed on a bed of straw on the platform, with the money at his side, neatly piled on a china dish from the farmhouse kitchen. The animals filed slowly past, and each gazed his fill, and Boxer put out his nose to sniff at the banknotes, and the flimsy white things stirred and rustled in his breath. 3 days later there was a terrible hullabaloo. Whymper, his face deadly pale, came racing up the path on his bicycle, flung it down in the yard, and rushed straight into the farmhouse. The next moment, a choking roar of rage sounded from Napoleon's apartments. The news of what had happened spread round the farm like wildfire. The banknotes were forgeries. Frederick had got the terror for nothing. Napoleon called the animals together immediately and in a terrible voice pronounced the death sentence upon Frederick. When captured, he said Frederick should be boiled alive. At the same time, he warned them that after this treacherous deed, the worst was to be expected. Frederick and his men might make their long expected attack at any moment. Sentinels were placed at all the approaches to the farm. In addition, 4 pigeons were sent to Foxwood with a conciliatory message which it was hoped might re-establish good relations with Pilkington. The very next morning the attack came. The animals were at breakfast when the lookouts came racing in with the news that Frederick and his followers had already come through the 5-barred gate. Boldly enough, the animals sallied forth to meet them, rallied, but this time they did not have the easy victory that they had had in the Battle of the Cowshed. There were 15 men
Sir,
with
1 second.
half.
Davji,
Yeah,
Davji
yes,
came
sir.
to the panel. Hi, Davji. How are you?
Hi, Davji. How are you doing?
Hi, but I will not speak because you can hear the sounds.
Oh, yeah. We can hear the music. Enjoy.
Not the
Yeah,
music,
yeah.
the match. After
Oh, the
after match
match.
party. After
Okay,
match
the
Well,
party.
post.
That's why I will
congratulations.
listen.
Yeah.
I will give
Yeah,
my
yeah.
remark at the end. Okay.
All right, sir.
Sure, sure. Yes, sir.
And by the way, congrats.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
congrats, everyone.
Congratulations to Team
Congrats.
India. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations to India. All right, right, sir. So the animal farm was on attack once again. Mm, the animal the animals were at breakfast when the lookouts came racing in with the news that Frederick and his followers had already come through the 5-barred gate. Boldly enough, the animals sallied forth to meet them, but this time they did not have the easy victory that they had had in the Battle of the Cowshed. There were 15 men with half a dozen guns between them, and they opened fire as soon as they got within 50 yards. The animals could not face the terrible explosions and the stinging pellets, and in spite of the efforts of Napoleon and Boxer to rally them, They were soon driven back. A number of them were already wounded. They took refuge in the farm buildings and peeped cautiously out from chinks and knotholes. The whole of the big pasture, including the windmill, was in the hands of the enemy. For the moment, even Napoleon seemed at a loss. He paced up, he paced up and down without a word, his tail rigid and twitching. Wistful glances were sent in the direction of Foxwood. If Pilkington and his men would help them, the day might yet be won. But at this moment, the four Pigeons who had been sent out on the day before returned, one of them bearing a scrap of paper from Pilkington. On it was penciled the words, "Serves you right." Meanwhile, Frederick and his men had halted about the windmill. The animal watched them, and a murmur of dismay went round. Two of the men had produced a crowbar and a sledgehammer. They were going to knock the windmill down. "Impossible!" cried Napoleon. "We have built the walls too thick for that, far too thick for that. They could not knock it down in a week. Courage, comrades!" But Benjamin was watching the movements of the men intently. The two with the hammer and the crowbar were drilling a hole near the base of the windmill. Slowly and with an air almost of amusement, Benjamin nodded his long muzzle. "I thought so," he said. "Do you not see what they are doing? Another moment they are going to pack blasting powder into that hole." Terrified, the animals waited. It was impossible now to venture out of the shelter of the buildings. After a few minutes, the men were seen to be running in all directions. Then there was a deafening roar. The pigeons swirled into the air, and all the animals except Napoleon flung themselves flat on their bellies and hid their faces. When they got up again, a huge cloud of black smoke was hanging where the windmill had been. Slowly the breeze drifted it away. The windmill had ceased to exist. At this sight, the animals' courage returned to them. The fear and despair they had felt a moment earlier were drowned in their rage against this vile, contemptible act. A mighty cry for vengeance went up, and without waiting for further orders, they charged forth in a body and made straight for the enemy. This time they did not heed the cruel pellets that swept over them like hail. It was a savage, bitter battle. The men fired again and again, and when the animals got to close quarters, lashed out with their sticks and their heavy boots. A cow, three sheep, and two geese were killed, and nearly everyone was wounded. Even Napoleon, who was directing operations from the rear, had the tip of his tail chipped by a pellet. But the men did not go unscathed either. Three of them had their heads broken by blows from boxers' hoofs. Another was gored in the belly by a cow's horn. Another had his trousers nearly torn off by Jessie and Bluebell. And when the 9 dogs of Napoleon's own bodyguard, whom he had instructed to make a detour under cover of the hedge, suddenly appeared on the men's flank, baying ferociously, panic overtook them. They saw that they were in danger of being surrounded. Frederick shouted to his men to get out while the going was good, and the next moment The cowardly enemy was running for dear life. The animals chased them right down to the bottom of the field and, and got in some last kicks at them. They forced their way through the thorn hedge. They had won, but they were weary and bleeding. Slowly they began to limp back towards the farm. The sight of their dead comrades stretched upon the grass moved some of them to tears, and for a little while they halted in sorrowful silence at the place where the windmill had once stood. Yes, it was gone. Almost the last trace of their labor was gone. Even the foundations were partially destroyed, and in rebuilding it, they could not this time, as before, make use of the fallen stones. This time, the stones had vanished too. The force of the explosion had flung them to distances of hundreds of yards. It was as though the windmill had never been. As they approached the farm, Squealer, who had unaccountably been absent during the fighting, came skipping towards them, whisking his tail and beaming with satisfaction. And the animals heard from the direction of the farm buildings the solemn booming of a gun. "What is that gun firing for?" said Boxer. "To celebrate our victory," cried Squealer. "What victory?" said Boxer. His knees were bleeding. He had lost a shoe and split his hoof, and a dozen pellets had lodged themselves in his hind leg. "What victory, comrade? Have we not driven the enemy off our soil, the sacred soil of Animal Farm? But they have destroyed the windmill, and we had worked on it for 2 years. What matter? We will build another windmill. We will build 6 windmills if we feel like it. You do not appreciate, comrade, the mighty thing that we have done. The enemy was in occupation of this very ground that we stand upon. And now, thanks to the leadership of Comrade Napoleon, we have won every inch of it back again. Then we have then we have won back what we had before, said Boxer. That is our victory, said Squealer. They limped into the yard. The pellets under the skin of Boxer's leg smarted painfully. He saw ahead of him the heavy labor of rebuilding the windmill from the foundations, and already in imagination he braced himself for the task. But for the first time it occurred to him that he was 11 years old, and that perhaps his great muscles were not quite what they had once been. But when the animals saw the green flag flying and heard the gun firing again, 7 times it was fired in all, and heard the speech that Napoleon made, congratulating them on their conduct, it did seem to them, after all, that they had won a great victory. The animals slain in the battle were given a solemn funeral. Boxer and Clover pulled the wagon which served as a hearse, and Napoleon himself walked at the head of the procession. 2 whole days were given over to celebrations. There were songs, speeches, and more firing of the gun, and a special gift of an apple was bestowed on every animal, with 2 ounces of corn for each bird and 3 biscuits for each dog. It was announced that the battle would be called the Battle of the Windmill, and that Napoleon had created a new decoration, the Order of the Green Banner, which he had conferred upon himself. In the general rejoicings, the unfortunate affair of the banknotes was forgotten. It was a few days later than this that the pigs came upon a case of whisky in the cellars of the farmhouse. It had been overlooked at the time when the house was first occupied. The night they came from the farmhouse, the sound of loud singing, in which, to everyone's surprise, the strains of beasts of England were mixed up. At about 9:30, Napoleon, wearing an old bowler hat of Mr. Jones, was distinctly seen to emerge from the back door, gallop rapidly round the yard, and disappear indoors again. But in the morning, a deep silence hung over the farmhouse. Not a pig appeared to be stirring. It was nearly 9 o'clock when Squealer made his appearance, walking slowly and dejectedly, his eyes dull, his tail hanging limply behind him, and with every appearance of being seriously ill. He called the animals together and told them that he had a terrible piece of news to impart. Comrade Napoleon was dying. A cry of lamentation went up. Straw was laid down outside the doors of the farmhouse, and the animals walked on tiptoe. With tears in their eyes, they asked one another what they should do if their leader were taken away from them. A rumor went around that Snowball had after all contrived to introduce poison into Napoleon's food. At 11 o'clock, Squealer came out to make another announcement. At his last act upon earth, Comrade Napoleon had pronounced a solemn decree. The drinking of alcohol was to be punished by death. By the evening, however, Napoleon appeared to be somewhat better, and the following morning Squealer was able to tell them that he was well on the way to recovery. By the evening of that day, Napoleon was back at work, and on the next day it was learned that he had instructed Whymper to purchase in Willingdon some booklets on brewing and distilling. A week later, Napoleon gave orders that the small paddock beyond the orchard, which it had previously been intended to set aside as a grazing ground for animals who were past work, was to be ploughed up. It was given out that the pasture was exhausted and needed reseeding, but it soon became known that Napoleon intended to sow it with barley. About this time, there occurred a strange incident which hardly anyone was able to understand. One night at about 12 o'clock, there was a loud crash in the yard, and the animals rushed out of their stalls. It was a moonlit night. At the foot of the end wall of the big barn, where the 7 commandments were written, there lay a ladder broken in 2 pieces. Squealer, temporarily stunned, was sprawling beside it, and near at hand there lay a lantern, a paintbrush, and an overturned pot of the white paint. The dogs immediately made a ring round Squealer and escorted him back to the farmhouse as soon as he was able to walk. None of the animals could form any idea as to what this meant, except old Benjamin, who nodded his muzzle with a knowing air and seemed to understand, but would say nothing. But a few days later, Muriel, reading over the seven commandments to herself, noticed that there was yet another of them which the animals had remembered wrong. They had thought the fifth command was, "No animal shall drink alcohol." But there were two words that they had forgotten. Actually, the commandment read, "No animal shall drink alcohol to excess." So
All right,
there
wonderful, sir.
ends the chapter 8.
Yeah.
So,
So obviously, this is also a very interesting chapter. A lot of conspiracy theories. There is a war fought
yes,
as well, basically, and
yes, yes, yes.
the windmill is destroyed again. So there is loss of property. There are all kinds of things,
Yeah,
basically.
yes, yes, yes.
But then Napoleon is essentially getting whatever he wants.
Oh my God, Napoleon conspiracy. He's been
Yeah,
uh, writing. They are beyond beliefs. What
yeah,
what is happening? He says one thing about Frederick and one thing about Pilkington,
correct.
and then trade with Frederick, then asks Pilkington for help when the time comes. So basically, what he thinks he is the only uh, intellectual one, intellectual one or enlightened person that there is in this whole world. Maybe that is what he is thinking.
Yeah, yeah. Then finally, now again, Boxer is hurt in the war, so that is also bad.
Yeah,
Now they have to
true,
build
sir.
the. Basically, they are just keeping the animals busy in building the windmill and things like that.
Yes,
There
yes,
is nothing else happening.
yes.
Yeah,
Nothing else is happening. All good things are being taken away by very special few
hmm,
that those think that they are special, but not very special actually.
yeah.
Many losses. And
Yeah.
so, what about this alcohol business? I didn't understand it. So, even while I was reading, I could not.
So basically, I think Napoleon was having the alcohol, and
Yeah.
so were some of the pigs, basically.
Okay.
So they amended the commandment
Yeah.
to say you cannot drink in excess, basically. But what was once seen
No,
to
no.
be very bad, the humans were doing it,
Yeah.
and it was very bad. Now these pigs are also doing it.
Okay. So they have added two words to the fifth commandment. Is that right, sir?
To excess. So no animal shall drink alcohol, and it was
That
amended
was
to say to
the
excess.
right. That was the original commandment, fifth commandment. No animal shall
Correct,
drink.
correct.
Then they amended it, and I would not say amended. They just made their decision. Um, their decision. Uh, how would I say?
Basically,
Visible to
they
people.
added these
That's
two
all.
words to make it okay. So the same thing,
Yeah.
right? No animal shall kill another animal was the original commandment. So
Right.
previously there were these two words that suddenly appeared from nowhere, right?
Right.
Without cause,
Right.
right? So that
Right,
without
sir.
cause was added later by Squealer, obviously in the night,
Hmm.
and the same thing happened here.
Yes, sir. And Squealer being Squealer never appeared in the war.
Correct.
But after all the war was over, he comes and confronts all the people, all the animals in the farm, saying that it was their victory and all the credit goes to Napoleon.
Yep.
So understand how the animals were treated, being treated every other day, sir.
Yep.
And the Napoleon, sir, the way he is presenting himself before people is much more like a dictator, sir.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
mean, mm,
Exactly. So now it's all about Napoleon and whatever he wants to be the commandments with all this propaganda machine is working, the secret service is working, everything is going
right, right,
smoothly
sir.
for him. You know.
Right, right. Yeah. So poor boxer, poor animals,
Yeah.
and about the suicides, sir, that they committed. Someone committed suicide, saying that they made a mistake.
Yeah.
How can they commit suicide, sir? Is it there
I
must be a
think.
foul play?
Yeah. Exactly. I think probably somebody is instigating them to. It's like if you don't confess, then you will die anyway. So you might as well confess and be killed officially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So they made themselves commit suicide, but in the way which they want.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. So
I don't think so in chapter 8 anyone like suicide. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, basically, confession is near suicide, right? Because they are going to get killed anyway. So
Oh yeah.
yeah. So it's like somebody is forcing them, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Or probably animals are too naive to. I mean, they're taking the whole commandment situation too seriously.
yeah, actually, sir, Napoleon was wearing what Jones, I guess Jones attire, I guess. I think.
Mhm. Hat.
Yeah, Jones hat, and
Yeah, so
he
in
is
chapter 8
presenting himself.
Napoleon stops. Yeah, he stops pretending to like a king or something. He now goes for dictator, full blown dictator. Not
Exactly.
king, sorry, leader. Yeah, previously he
Yeah,
was a
not
leader.
not.
Now he's a fully
Yeah,
now he's fully dictator. Be like he got security, luxury, and of course propaganda machine. Sometimes I
yeah,
think, as I said earlier, also in chapter 7, that propaganda machine can make politicians jealous. Like
and that
of course,
wonderful poem that was composed by Minimus.
Exactly.
Sir, sir, friend of fatherless, fountain of happiness, all that, all that nonsense. And somewhere it says, "Thou watchest over all, comrade Napoleon," and
what?
"Thou watchest over all."
Yeah.
You will watch over all of us, comrade Napoleon.
Hmm.
That's what the poem says, and it is all about Napoleon.
Hmm.
I think it. I think we can draw parallel to the great Kim Jong Un.
Hmm.
This
I don't think so.
this poem was etched on the wall, and his portrait was above that poem,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'd be like, I love Kiran. Yeah. What a character.
Basically, all their hard work is being put into ash, being turned into ashes, and yet
Yeah.
day after day, they have to toil themselves, hurt themselves, and build the same thing again and again,
Poor box.
dictated by Napoleon.
Hmm.
That's it, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess more to come in chapter 9. So chapter 8 is
Yeah,
probably just a preview of how bad things can get in chapter 9. So
Yeah.
it's too
chapter
embarrassing,
9,
sir.
Um,
Daoji is already getting very sad.
yeah.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I don't think so. Okay, I will
No
be in
spoilers,
chapter
please.
9 reading.
No spoilers,
No, I
please.
don't think so. Okay, I will be in chapter 9's reading because that chapter is like so sad, man.
I know.
Okay, okay. No
This
spoilers.
corrupt mafia boss, Napoleon idiot.
All right.
Ah,
Hmm.
like
So,
this
okay.
chapter is like showing us everything, like the
Yeah,
commandment magically changing overnight,
correct.
animal overwork, underfed, and it's still told like being told that they are thriving by a squirrel, no?
Correct.
Saying it's good time. And I love that part when like Napoleon tries to play Shark Tank with humans and
Correct.
only to get scammed. Low, I give you monopoly money. You know the game, Monopoly.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, take
So
that.
this war in the chapter 8 is completely caused by Napoleon's. Is that right, sir?
Yeah, probably
Yes,
that's how you interpret it. Yeah,
Uh, nothing. There was no fault with any other animal. It is
correct.
purely Napoleon's BS
Yeah,
that caused all that
because
harm. And yeah,
mm, because Napoleon
yeah,
thinks he's over like outsmarting the human, but
yeah,
I get the
exactly.
plot twist.
That was my first line while telling my opinion. So he thinks he is the only intellectual one, he is the only enlightened one, and he can outsmart anyone with his wits.
Mm.
That is
So
what
now
he
we know
thinks.
that. Mm,
That is the most dumbest person on the planet, whoever so thinks.
mm. Yeah,
And
even ruthless
this,
tyrant can be terrible businessman. Huh?
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Poor boxer.
poor boxer, any
Yeah, he's
animals,
literally working himself to
all
death.
those animals. Yeah, almost all those animals that died, and even now, poor boxer is thinking how to rebuild the windmill.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
That
the
because
only
is,
he
thing he
knows
knows
only
how
hard
to
work,
do.
na.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, he knows
yeah.
only hard work. He believes Napoleon fully, like blind believer.
Exactly. Napoleon must be
Oh,
right.
oh, oh.
Yeah,
Napoleon, if Napoleon says, it must be right.
here you can see that boxer is dying. Like he's going near death. Okay, second by second because he's hurt also, and he's still working. And while Napoleon is probably sipping whiskey in his private den. I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah. About that also.
I have proper lines written for this chapter's moral. Do you wanna know?
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, please tell us. Raja.
Blind loyalty is dictator's best friend. Propaganda can make anyone believe nonsense, and even the most powerful can fall for a bad business deal. That's
Yeah,
my moral, I would
that
say.
is your summary for the chapter. Yeah, it's well done.
Yeah,
Yeah, Samir.
true, sir, true.
And one more thing I would like to add that blind loyalty is dangerous.
Yeah,
Like you should always double check It goes for Napoleon also. You should always double check your payment before closing the deal.
Correct.
Both. You should double check your leaders also. Always, always check them.
Yeah.
And sometimes when
mm,
I think about it, I wanted to ask you also.
Yeah.
If Snowball was here, okay, suppose if Snowball was here, I don't think so. It would have like much change. He eventually he will also be like Napoleon.
Yeah.
Napoleon being a dictator is not because of only Napoleon's nature. It's the power that corrupts sometimes, or not double checking. If you keep checking, because when Snowball was there, Napoleon was in check. I guess
Correct.
either of them, one goes, the other is like nobody here could check.
Correct. Takes over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sad chapter and more sad chapters are coming. Let's
Yeah.
see.
sir, is
And
Shravan sir there,
idiot
sir?
Benjamin,
Mm, yeah,
idiot Benjamin.
Yeah. Yeah. Benjamin knows everything. He even saw the gunpowder being put and all that. Right.
exactly,
But
exactly, sir.
obviously he could not do anything.
I'm actually wondering, he knows everything, but he, he wants to do nothing or he does nothing.
He does nothing. That's the thing. That's his
He does
character.
nothing. Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
He chooses to do nothing.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I see.
because he knows in either way I'm going to suffer. So I have no problem with Jones also. I have no problem with Napoleon.
Correct.
Do what you want to.
Oh,
It's
okay,
proper
okay.
middle class, I guess. It's just
Yeah.
middle class behavior. Like
Oh,
if this party come to rule, no problem. This party comes, no problem, because I am going to suffer if I'm like eventually in both the ruling.
Both the
I don't think it is the middle class. Maybe the poor people mindset. Maybe
Um,
one comes and
like
the other one
lower middle
goes.
class, I guess,
You know.
because yeah, like I'm not fully like sure about the line that like middle class or poor or anybody. It's those people who know that power corrupts, okay, and you cannot do anything
correct.
because you have no power.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling. The
Those
poor
people are
people observe. The poor people can understand many things much better than the ones in higher strata. That's what my
yep,
assessment is. They
Yeah.
can understand by observing people's behavior, their body language. They are much more observant in those things. They can understand easily by looking at the people whether they are trustworthy or crooked. So the either way, whatever the leader comes, they even though they understand what they are getting into, they can't do anything.
yes.
So that is what Benjamin is my understanding. Sir, sir is Shravan sir there, sir? Any comments on this chapter?
I think he's just.
It's not about the chapter, it's about the story and
Right,
the
sir.
reality.
Of course,
See,
of
what
course, sir.
happens ultimately, once
Sir,
the power to control, divert, and influence people comes into
right,
picture,
sir.
these all things will blend into only one thing called dictatorship.
Correct,
Right?
sir.
But see, once upon a time where aristocracy was at, was at the helm of, was at the peaks. People, they didn't want aristocracy to be in place because they held near absolute power. Then the church kicked in. Church at one point of time they had near absolute power. Then they said, no, 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 no,
Hmm.
no, people have to be in control of the power. Then people elected somebody, which is called communism,
Hmm.
right? Again,
Hmm. Hmm.
it became into a dictatorship. Now people don't want communism, people wanted capitalism. At one point of time, capitalism was at the helm of its affairs. Even now it is, but still. Okay, then they said communism is the answer to capitalism. That became China. Now see, the entire communist country is a capitalist country.
Correct, sir.
China, where is communism in China? There is no, nothing
Hmm.
called communism except the Communist Party of India. Just a namesake.
Communist
Ultimately,
Party of China, sir.
they are
Not
the
not
Yeah,
biggest
not
capitalists of the
not
world.
not India, sir.
yeah.
Not India, sir.
Communist Party
Communist
of
Yeah,
Party.
what?
China, CCC,
Yeah.
CCP or
No, it
whatever.
should
CCP.
Yeah,
CCP. Actually, it should be Capitalist Party of China.
Mm.
yeah,
Chinese Capitalist Party
yeah.
Yeah.
rather than Chinese
Even
Communist Party.
I don't think so. CCI is different. Sorry, nothing.
India is democracy, sir.
India is pseudo-democratic.
Pseudo
We call it
democracy.
democratic.
Yeah.
Pseudo democracy.
China is not even
Hmm.
pseudo communism. China is.
Hmm.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
See,
I
where
you
is
know
communism in India? There is no communism. We have a different form called socialism. Ultimately, same
mm,
thing,
Yeah.
different name. And again, we say we are not capitalistic. But what are we doing everywhere? We find capitalism here. I don't even understand
Correct.
what we are.
There is about 10% of billionaires in India, sir, from
See,
among the
that is what
world.
I am saying. So where are we? Whether we are a communist state or a socialist state or a capitalist state, what are we? I am confused.
we are good nirpich like in the ism also.
We are we are
In
neither
the
this
ism
nor that.
also.
But no, no, we are
Yeah.
defined by neither this nor that. But there is no single definition which can define us.
Our preamble says
Yeah,
sovereign,
that's the
socialist, secular,
mm,
democratic republic, sir.
yeah, that's the good and bad part. Same thing. That's good also, that bad also. In every aspect, some things are good, some things are bad. You know the argument behind democracy that it's the best we can do now. It's the best, and there should be
Yeah.
something more good than.
Yeah. It is a democracy is truly a bit of a compromise more than anything else.
Correct,
Yeah,
sir.
Uh,
but
yeah.
we don't have anything good other than this.
e- Exactly.
See, very clear. We are not defined by anything, any one thing. We are defined by neither this nor that.
Mm. Yeah,
We are neither a capitalist nor communist. That is what we are. But if we really ask
yeah.
what we are,
Thank
we
God
don't know.
we
Nobody
only
knows
have
the answer.
we only no Sravan Garu. Thank God we have this problem from ism. You know, this ism, that ism, not from the gender thing. Otherwise, we are not this and that. That would have been a problem,
Correct.
and it's going to be
Correct.
eventually because we follow the trend after 5 years. So if it's happening there after 5 years, here also like going to be the
Yeah.
late
True.
fashion sense.
Yeah. All right, sir. Shall we move towards closure?
Yeah, sure,
Absolutely, sir.
sure, sir,
Thank you.
sure, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We have discussed it long enough.
Yeah.
yeah,
Daji,
that
go
all. Yeah, that is going to be my final remark.
ahead.
Blind loyalty is Peter's best friend. Always cross
So,
check.
Yeah.
But the
enthusiastically waiting for chapter 9, sir.
yeah, whoever listen this, please come for chapter 9. You guys gonna love chapter 9, and a happy feeling you will get in chapter 9. No sad things, no nothing. You will get the best ending possible in chapter 9. Come, listen. Okay. I have some work, so I will not come, but you guys, whoever listen. Please come for chapter 3. You will love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, Boxer is going to drink wine and all the things. Boxer is going to having the party. Come. And for the last remark, I will work harder. I will work hard.
All right, Darcy. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank,
all right, sir.
yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for whoever is going to listen. If you have anything, please put it in the comments and we'll respond to it. Okay. Thank you.